I am your host, Brent Feldman, and we are back with another episode of Mix and Matchbox. Today, we are joined by Chris Dornfeld. He's the president and co-founder at Whistle Rewards. Hey, Chris, how are you doing?
Great to be here.
Awesome. Well, definitely great to be chatting with you. I know this is definitely not our first meetup, as we keep running into each other, and I'm actually really excited to ask you some questions just deeper about your background and what you guys do. So, yeah.
Great.
Hopefully we can jump right in.
Let's jump in.
All right, sounds good. You started your career as an architectural designer at HOK, which actually seems like a very different path than you're on now. Are there any things, systems, processes, or other that you kind of took away from that experience that you kind of still apply today?
Yeah, there's probably several. I mean, I think architecture is really this incredible profession. It just gives you this wonderful perspective on the world and understanding how and why things, are built and operate the way they are. But, and I don't think I realized this at the time, but there are several aspects of architecture that I think carry forward into the entrepreneurial world very well. One is, you go through the practice as you design something to come up with a clear vision of what you want to build. And you kind of have to sell people on that idea. This is the building I'm building for you, client. And it's so, it's made of glass and it's this tall and whatever. And so you see renderings, right? And you're sort of convincing people this is the destination. This is where we want to go. And I think that's really important as you build companies to have a clear picture of where you're trying to get to have that clarity of sort of strategy, purpose. This is our destination. This is the type of company, and be able to paint that picture so people can buy into that and be excited about that vision. Mm-hmm. I think another piece from architecture is, and I joke with some of my friends in engineering about stealing sort of agile methodology and these tools. A lot of the modern technology, tool set really evolved out of the design world. So as you're an architect and you have that vision of what we're going to build, inevitably you work with a lot of different people. It's a very collaborative process. So you learn to work with different trades, whether those are constructors or different engineering partners or urban planners or client representatives, right? I mean, it's literally hundreds of skills are brought to bear when you're tackling a major project. And as the architect, you're kind of coordinating and piggyback all of that, coordinating all that work to come up with a completed project, and you have to be really nimble along the way. So part of the challenge is inevitably things don't go as planned, right? And I think as a business owner, you appreciate that, whatever vision you have of what my life is going to be like for the next 12 months, it's wrong. You're just trying to figure out, well, how do I navigate through which degree of wrongness or difference it is? And architecture really taught me a lot about that and how to not take that personally, as people had different ideas or criticize you. So being flexible, being agile in your thinking and method, and then working really to problem solve. You can't get 2/3 of the way building a building and suddenly realize, well, we're a little over budget, so we just won't put in windows. You have to complete the project. So there's a lot of great lessons in how to really problem solve and just work with collaborative teams, to work through those challenges.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of our earliest industries that, our company worked with was actually the architecture industry, because that was the background of my business partner. So, it's cool. I love hearing how, you applied some of those lessons. And I think there were plenty of things that we quote unquote borrowed, everything from our file structure and organization, which I think was, it's super helpful. But it's definitely a super neat profession. And that's cool that, that was kind of like the foundation of your career.
Yeah, there's a lot of recovering architects out there.
That decide that maybe this isn't what I want to do forever. But yeah. Well, cool. Well, I know running a startup isn't easy either. But you were actually not only you're doing Whistle Rewards now, but actually you were the co-founder at Bonfire app as well. Are you always looking for gaps in the marketplace, or were there other factors that kind of led into creating these two independent sort of startups?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. One of the benefits I mentioned earlier of studying architecture is just how you see the world, and maybe one of the gifts, or maybe one of the cruel realities of that degree is you also are constantly evaluating things for ways that could have done better or improve, right? It's this constant learning journey. And I think I'm a naturally curious person. So I like understanding how a lot of different things work. And through that, I think you just begin to see, opportunities in the market or opportunities to improve things. So I think that's often really a core driver is that curiosity and observation. And with Whistle, we looked at the world and realized we could dramatically improve sort of these behavioral outcomes. That there's this big disconnect in terms of how the reward and incentive world is working, and what they want to sell you, and actually what the science tells us around human behavior. And so that gap really began to illuminate, I think, this really interesting opportunity. But it's also, I think, grounded this idea of wanting to improve the human experience, which is also this core driver. So given that and the opportunity to start a company, Whistle with a good friend, great group of people. I mean, that's always a huge benefit. I'm a little more, I think, of a shared practitioner, meaning I'd rather have partners than operate as a solo person, because I find that collaborative energy great. I find you help each other sort of through ups and downs and just navigate that. So when you have a great team and I think see an opportunity in the market and people you want to work with to, have impact and improve that human experience. I think that's really what motivates me or pulls me in to, keep bludgeoning myself with the entrepreneurial journey.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I definitely feel much aligned in that as well. Only because having the partner, having collaborative partners in general, really does. It makes the whole experience better. And I feel like the outcome is definitely potentially better because you it's not just coming from one source of truth, but multiple people with different experiences and backgrounds and bringing so much to the table. So I totally agree. Actually, as far as workplace and culture goes, as you just kind of mentioned that, sometimes people, like HR professionals or company leaders, are actively seeking tools to improve their workplace dynamic. And for those that aren't self-diagnosing or searching for tools in order to improve it or make it better, is it important to disrupt their complacency, or should that, audience, sort of really want to be finding that tool in order to make their workplace better? So, it's a little chunky and you may have to do some sort of, conjecture here, but I mean,
I mean, I think you've got, well, you don't know what you don't know, right? So the audience that isn't really looking for something, there's an education opportunity. But when it comes to, I think, a modern approach to the human experience, really understanding how do you build great culture, what I've observed is it's pretty misunderstood. Generally, it's pretty poorly executed. The problem of that is only growing as the ecosystem of employees continues to become more and more diverse, by age, by gender, by ethnicity, by region. So these sort of one size fits all monolithic approaches that have sort of been patterned, from the corporate world, really don't work well. So I think there's groups of people who are really paying attention to that and trying to find ways to evolve and build that great experience. And they're going to win the talent wars, right? They're going to be able to keep attracting the people and keep the people in their organization that are going to allow them to thrive and grow. And I think those who are complacent, as you said, aren't really looking for it. If they're not, they're really going to miss out on just the potential of their organization and could really be the demise of their organization. I know from talking with folks, we do a lot in construction, but it's true in manufacturing, it's true in healthcare. The expected labor shortages, for the coming decade or future are pretty significant. I mean, the numbers of people hitting retirement age and, is pretty astounding, especially in these areas. So I think companies who are, tuned into that and addressing it will do great. They'll thrive. They'll win, the race in the market, and those who don't might not be around.
Yeah, definitely. If you aren't thinking about it, you should be.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, you're not the only creator of a rewards and incentives application. I'm sorry to bring that news here on the podcast, but but a person who is genuinely also interested in kind of human behavior science, behind why it works, makes it a little more interesting. And as you sought to kind of reinvent this space, What learnings did you apply, from that sort of field of research and science in order to, sort of create Whistle?
Sure. First, I think the most important piece we anchored on is we studied the science, looked at a lot of different factors, looked at how I think the existing reward and recognition industry is not really aligned with creating better companies. Their business is really the transaction, right? Not the outcome. So we wanted to change that. And as we studied the science, the first thing we realized is timeliness is really critical when it comes to behavior change. So for every day we delay a reward or recognition, you lose about 5% of the behavioral impact. So you can think of a company that recognizes people often. You'll see like the end of the month or employee of the month or hand out a safety reward. I've talked to companies who even do this quarterly, and they'll it makes we feel good when we give gifts, right? We feel good when we receive gifts. We all feel good about that gesture. But if you look at the science and you look at the behavioral impact at that point, it's almost zero, right? So you're going through these motions with the illusion you're having effect, but you're really not. And it turns out if you can give people rewards in the moment, those behaviors are occurring, you start getting, the dopamine hits, you lean into this world of gamification. And what we've learned from social media is that immediacy drives right chemical change and begins to make us feel different about how we use this piece of technology, or we follow this process, or we do this thing. So we're really pursuing those ideas around behavioral science and neuroscience to say we can tap into these things and create a much better outcome, help people be more successful in their job, which everyone wants, right? Companies want that too. We can all be better aligned. So I think that's probably the biggest driver. And then some other things, we look a lot at simplicity. How do we remove friction from a process? I'm always amazed how quickly, and we even do this sometimes, overcomplicate something, right? And although we like to think, look, we're adding value, everything that is not sort of primary, right, is secondary, tertiary, and it's a distraction to the primary. Like there is some cost trade-off whenever you add anything. So we have a lot of discussion around that. I feel like there's a lot of tools out there that just quickly got way overcomplicated for their purpose. And then third, I think, what we're tapping into is really trying to help people overcome their fear of what's unfamiliar or the unknown. So one of the ways where I think behavioral science is played in how we are resistant to change. So one of the things I've learned a lot in the last 2 years is just where the bias comes from. Like, why do we have these biases? Where these things evolve in us? And it's really this, resistance to running into a dark room or a dark cave, right? It's a survival mechanism. Well, I don't know what's there. I don't know this person who's approaching me. I'm going to be a little cautious. And this is hardwired into us. And so we see this play out in technology as well. In the workplace, we see it play out in a lot of different ways. But it's a really interesting sort of neuroscience lever. If you say, all right, well, I'm going to be resistant to any change or adopting anything new, and recognizing that fact exists. And you can use rewards to then change that behavior pretty dramatically. So if I say, I need you to process this, a piece of paper, or fill out this administrative report every day for the next week, or file this safety report, a little hard to get that change to occur consistently. Turns out when I say, hey, if you do this, I'll buy you coffee, immediately that resistance goes away pretty quickly. So you can help habituate behaviors very effectively. So it's, I don't know, we write a lot about this. There's a lot of blog posts on our website if people want to dig into it. But I think those are 2 or 3 areas that I think have been really fascinating to learn about and study.
Yeah, definitely the mechanics of it. Well, and it's interesting because, like, you have the tool in which to utilize, but part of that, I guess, maybe does come in training, and kind of instructing people about, how to appropriately leverage these things in order to get those behavior outcomes that you're looking for. But it's cool. The first foundation is definitely, having the tool, but I love that the immediacy of it, making sure that, you're kind of bringing, sort of clear value, not over complicating a situation. And then, yeah, definitely. It seems like there's a lot of good value in what this tool is sort of bringing about, though, in its ability to change behavior. So it's very neat.
Yeah, we think so. And the evidence we have is pretty compelling. The effect we're having when we're doubling, tripling, or even in some cases we've improved, outcomes by 800%. It's pretty amazing, the impact of sort of time and simplicity, and when really understand how to focus this around the behavior,
Yeah.
the results are pretty astounding.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and just, tacking on, the last point you mentioned, making things more frictionless or reducing that resistance. And it's just that natural part of, human behavior that, yeah, we're resistant to new things and resistant to change and things that, yeah, we aren't ready for. So it's great being able to remove some of that, really does. It could have a big impact. Very cool. Well, behavior science is an age-old field. It's definitely it's been around for a while. But we're always learning more about the brain, how people respond to situations and technology as our world changes, really. And finding ways to adopt principles while discovering new ones. So how important to you is it to really pace this field of study as you develop new features? Is that kind of like a critical component that you see sort of as the evolution of Whistle Rewards?
Yeah, we do. There's a lot of people who talk about science and I would say have a paper thin sort of application of it, right? Just enough to say like, yes, we're science based or science driven, and if you dig into that, it's pretty thin. When we founded our business, we founded it with someone with a PhD in behavioral science, background in big data, AI tools, and so we had a very interesting sort of eclectic group of people that really began to break down, not only how does behavior really work, what are those drivers, how do we think about technology, how would we use it differently. But that little community we formed, and then also advisors are sort of around that network, we're constantly sharing different articles and ideas, right? We do a lot to stay informed about what is the newest thinking and what's the newest science. And often it's really the concepts we might be aware of, but the application is new, right? So if you look at a lot of the behavioral science research, you go back as we've read and studied things, I find it fascinating. Some of the books by like Kahneman or others, as I read their case studies, it's, we took 30 MIT graduate students and sort of ran this test. I'm like, all right, I'm not sure that's going to work the same with like 30 construction workers, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of variability depending on the population, the application, right, the situation of those principles. And that's one of the really nice things about of what we're doing is not only we have this great network of partners, but as we're collecting more data and testing things and working with some of our clients to even pilot or test different concepts or principles, we're learning a lot about how do we maximize effect in that population versus this population.
Very cool. Well, you definitely, there's a lot, based in the science, but you also kind of touched on, early on working with, people that understand big data as well. And definitely your system has the potential to, as well as like, to basically accrue a lot of data. And with that, are there trends that you see within that data that still sort of like, surprise you, or are maybe counter to other beliefs that you kind of saw things, saw them going?
Yeah, I don't know there's been as much, complete left turn or 180-degree turn from an idea of yep, that was wrong. I think we see a lot more nuanced application within a certain population, right, is different, or some assumptions when they're generalized, because a lot of this, again, is very generalized, but recognizing we have very diverse people, very diverse interests, very diverse skill sets. I think the application varies more, and so that's kind of interesting. We've seen how people spend rewards is pretty fascinating. So, two takeaways from some of our data analysis is small dollar rewards have a much bigger impact than we initially would have thought, right? That it's you can spend a lot of money or you can spend a little money, and if you spend it wisely or know how to spend that, right, timeliness again being a critical factor, you can actually just have much smaller budgets and have much greater impact if you begin to understand the population and that application. So I think that's been really interesting. And then really just how we can overcome, I mentioned this earlier, but I think one of the most powerful areas for rewards and incentives that really is underutilized is technology adoption and change management. We don't often think about that as a component of most change management processes, but what our data is showing is it's the improvement is just incredible. As I said, we have a case study with someone. We built a integration into a construction management software platform called Procore. which is kind of the leading, software platform in that industry. They manage about $1 trillion of construction in the country. And one of their clients we started working with because they were having a challenge getting adoption in the field of this technology, getting people just to use this, which is something I think all of us can relate to when a company's, yet again, here's a new, procedure, here's a new timesheet system, here's a new, and as I mentioned earlier, we all have a natural resistance to those things. And it turned out, we caused over an 800% improvement in utilization just by offering to, give small incentives to people. If you do this, I'll buy you lunch. If you do this 3 days in a row, maybe I'll give you $2 or $3 every day you do it. When that's real time and automated, and as soon as you're doing it, your phone's lighting up. So I think the results in certain situations have surprised me. They greatly exceeded our expectations. I don't think anyone said you're going to, improve utilization of this technology tenfold. That was pretty eye-opening.
Yeah. Oh, this is just me, spitballing a little, but I'm actually really thinking of like, what could you eventually do, with some of that data? And it would be interesting to track maybe even like, a person's progress through an organization and align that with some of the rewards and incentives data. Did somebody who either give or receive, some of the incentives like have a different sort of trajectory with inside a company. But I think there's like really, really fascinating learnings as you aggregate that data, with like, other sorts of pieces of information. Are there really big things that we could learn about, how this matters in somebody's, long-term career trajectory?
Yeah. Not only that, I mean, it's interesting. We have companies who are starting to use that recognition data and information as part of the annual review processes. So instead of it being like, what's front of mind from the managers I'm talking with you, I can go pull a year's worth of data and say, here's a list of all the things people thought you did really well. And that's super helpful when you have distributed workforces and teams where you might not be seeing everyone in your direct reporting line of sight every day. Those tools become really helpful because they're actually organizing information for you to just make better human resource decisions.
Yeah.
And then seeing also, I think it's helping us meet people where they are, meaning that as we've looked at how different audiences spend rewards, we're finding that lots of times people are going to, the grocery store or gas station. And so often when you see companies who are creating like incentive trips or saying, earn points and you'll get this fancy mixer. What I really need is I just need, money for my truck. So I'll take the $20 versus, accruing points over 6 months to buy something I don't really need. I think this idea of helping people really, create a better experience of meeting where they are is pretty powerful.
Yeah. Oh, Chris, since actually I kind of learned about Whistle, I'd actually look at a lot of other points programs with a really critical lens now. And it is one of those things that you talk plenty about, like, like a breakage and just, where people like, won't be able to spend the rewards. And it was funny because like, I think I talked to somebody like recently and gosh, even for ourselves, like, where they were like, oh, I was really trying to like save up to get this, but I left the company before I got it. And it was like, boy, what a useless, pile of, nothing that kind of ended up. Or I was looking at the Google rewards, for being part of the partners program. And, and it's that, extracting, the monetary, and putting it into points or like, some other system of money is the thing that, oh boy, I think it's because of you that bugs me now, or
it's an obfuscation of value, right? I mean,
yeah. It's just, I appreciate gamification when it can lead towards, better outcomes, better, kind of, behavior. But, when money isn't money anymore and it's to serve another company's benefit, I'm like, oh, I see it. I see it much more clearly.
Yeah, it's eye-opening. It's like architecture. You start to see the world in different ways. You really understand how motivation and these incentive models work. You realize, they're really not great. And we just worked with a client recently who I think had thousands of employees around the country, but spent about $2 million a year on gift cards. And we helped them audit that, and they realized that half those gift cards were never redeemed. So they were literally just donating 50% of their entire reward budget to Starbucks and DoorDash. Is I don't know, like they're struggling and need, a lot of cash contribution versus their employees actually accruing benefit from that or them getting benefit from it. And so it's exciting to help people really redesign that. And I think companies learn, teaching companies how to use those budgets to actually drive better outcomes and say, great, we have better performance. We've examples where we've improved retention 20, 30%. You're keeping higher quality people. People are feeling more valued. There's what I like about it is we are actually helping the businesses and helping people at the same time. Like everyone's winning in this scenario. So
Definitely.
it's great.
That's cool. I don't know if you're willing to break some news here, or if there's any new features that you can talk about, that you're working on for Whistle Rewards, and what sort of benefits, from a transactional perspective or psychological perspective, that these, sort of new features that you're looking at implementing may bring.
Yeah. So if our focus, or at least some of my focus right now, as a team, and the thing I'm probably most excited about is, we've shown, maybe exceeding our expectations, we can move the needle on quantity or volume, right? I can encourage people to do this more. I can help them pattern the behavior. I can even remove the incentive and see, continued outcomes. So we know we can move the needle on quantity. The next piece of it is, can I get people to do things in a way that improve the quality as well? Right. So we all have so many administrative tasks we now deal with, with technology, and you think of how much screen time we all spend. It's true in every field. I don't think that's going to change or reduce anytime soon. So how do we get people to not just check a box and turn in bad information, if you will, right? Because what I need is good information so I can make better strategic decisions as an organization, get smarter. And so we've been building and just launched 2 weeks ago our prototype of an AI tool. We have an AI system called Robin, which has been part of our platform since day one. But what we've started to do is people, we have all this recognition data going through there. We've studied what really makes an impactful recognition. And so kind of like a password checker, it's reading it to say, well, are you doing these things? Are you including these things in your recognition that actually make it most effective? And Robin can even help you write that if you want, right? To sort of help complete that, to say, well, you might want to take this approach. But that engine, I think what's so exciting is we can apply that in a lot of different areas. So in the construction world, particularly what we're looking at is people fill out safety reports or add progress photos. We've actually trained AI to read and interpret all of that and help you then create a more complete record. So the system can prompt you, can you clarify what you meant by this thing? Can you add a little more information here? So what we'll be coming out with, over the next 6 months, are really a series of tools that just help, I think, both sort of grade or score things based on value. So you could create an incentive model and say, are you really producing high quality work? But it's also helping instructors show people what that looks like and help teach them as they interact with these systems, how do you actually create better inputs? And so if we're incentivizing people to both increase quality, but also the quality, the quantity and quality of what they're doing, I think that's a win for everyone, right? I'm going to become more effective at producing this information. I now have a much richer data set as a company to make decisions about safety and culture and so on and so forth. So I think that's pretty exciting.
That's really neat. You ever thought about implementing this with actual people and families? It's
funny. I've had a couple people recently ask about that, and people bringing up, they come to us all the time, like, this is great. Can you apply it in schools? Could you do it? Like, I think the breadth of application is really broad. I think right now we're going to continue to, we're not big enough to focus on everything at once, but yeah, I think it'll be exciting to see how it evolves and how we can really just affect, better experiences in all sorts of different areas of life in the world.
Awesome. Cool. Do you have, any sort of higher mission, with bringing about a better workplace environment? I remember the anecdote that you had kind of mentioned about, your own ability to improve, sort of like your own sort of like, workplace culture, the retention that you gained, from, kind of implementing some of these things. And, but, is this kind of is it a nice byproduct that you get to do this as a company to hopefully improve culture and change, or is this actually mission driven from you at the core?
Yeah, I think I think it's a little more just improving the quality of the human experience. My business partner and I are both really excited about the idea that we can apply this knowledge and experience we have in behavioral science and data science and sort of design and human experience to not only, I think, make people more successful in their jobs, but when you look at things like in construction and manufacturing, issues like safety, and saying, hey, we know we can affect safety outcomes. Like, we're showing pretty clearly we can help make these environments more safe for people. I think that's pretty exciting, right? That we can not only create great culture, right, but we can do it in a way that really drives better profitable outcomes for the business, more profitable outcomes, frankly, for people, but also making sure, people are just having a better experience, whether that's mental health or, job site safety or what have you. The mission, I think, is really, let's improve that experience and those outcomes, because our belief is we can align people and companies much more effectively. That unlocks a lot of value for both of them.
Definitely.
So I think that's our North Star.
Yeah, that's cool. Getting people on the same page. It sounds like such a simple thing at the end of the day. But yeah, if you can find ways to do that, through technology, or otherwise, like, obviously that can help everybody work better together, be more productive, be more collaborative, have a better outcome. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
that's great. Well, cool. And equipped with all the knowledge on the subject, are there still things that you struggle with putting things in the right place in the mix, in order to maintain your own culture? And, obviously this is like, maybe a deep dive, but like, so much about it, but, as you think about, productivity and happiness, of whether that be, team, work life, all that sort of stuff. Are there things that you're like, gosh, it's still a chore, still a pain in some places that you deal with?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We're still a little small, subscale. So it's a little easier because we can pull everyone in a room together. I've found there's sort of thresholds as you build companies. When you get up to north of 25 people, you sort of hit this one threshold of, well, I can't have everyone around the same table, and so I have to start creating layers. So you avoid, I think, a lot of the cultural challenges when you're small, when you're below that 25 person level. But I think the one thing we've applied that I really like, and I think is an under sort of valued component of what we can do, is this idea of giving people budgets or empowering people. I'm always surprised how little managers listen, and how much people like talk, right, or share. So we really tried to listen to people, and early on, and this predates this company, but building great cultures has been sort of a core thesis to every startup I've been part of. And one of the things we do with our employees is we give them budgets and make culture a shared responsibility among everyone, right? So it's not just upon me to solve every cultural challenge, but we give everyone money to take team members to lunch, right? If we want to invest in a company get together, people have small budgets, so we can self-organize. So people have organized beer tastings and chocolate tastings and bowling nights, right? And everyone has a budget to participate. And the reason we did that is knowing people have different interests. If we come in and say we're going to have a pizza party, that's great, except for the people who don't like pizza or are gluten intolerant or dairy intolerant. Like, yeah, I mean, you're never going to get 100% of people, through a top-down program. But if you can allow lots of little things to happen that meet people where they are, you can have a much greater effect on sort of that ownership of culture and outcome. So that's one thing I'm really proud of, that I think came from a series of learning of just empowering people to take more ownership of that.
Yeah.
But part of that empowerment is giving them the resources that they can actually take ownership and have impact. I think it's one thing to say, you're all responsible for this. It's another saying, well, you're my partner in being responsible for this, and by the way, I'm giving you all money to spend and invest in that experience. People get pretty excited.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to apply it. I think I had a light bulb as soon as you started talking about it being, and I wanted to apply the term trickle down, but I don't think that's what it is. I really appreciate it. Yeah, the way you're labeling it as empowering, everybody within the company to do that. But I think it's nice that there is kind of like a central, way in order to translate that culture, out to other people in the workforce. And yeah, good point. As far as like, small organizations can do that sometimes really effectively. Exactly. By having, a lot of one-on-ones,
Yeah.
but as an organization, as it grows, it's really hard to do that, from the top to the bottom. So, the way you put it, empowering everybody to have, their own role in that, I think is great.
Yeah. And you recognize as you scale, the need states they diverge, I gave a talk not too long ago and had the audience, just to prove the point, I said, all right, everyone write down 3 words to describe, your sales organization. And this is all people, HR leaders at companies, most cases with hundreds of people. I said, okay, and now write 3 words that describe your IT organization. Almost everyone has some sort of sales or IT operational group. And then I said, all right, now write 3 words that describe like accounting, or pick a different department. And I said, all right, everyone, this audience of 100 people, I said, everyone who has the same words written down in each category, raise your hand. Of course, no one did. And it's just a little bit of acknowledgement that, we are not one culture. We are not monolithic. We are lots of little cultures interacting and changing and informing each other. So let's celebrate that, right? But empower that and allow that to sort of thrive. And that in turn attracts people and makes them, feel more comfortable. And you've removed, some of those friction points, if you will, in their experience. Your retention goes up. Lots of clear benefit from the approach.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I have one last question for you, and this is actually, there's lots of things besides just rewards and incentives, that maybe business owners could keep in mind to keep a team motivated. Is there anything that you could pass on that you feel like is, helpful outside of just this ecosystem of, software, rewards, incentives, sort of platform that you feel like is maybe helpful as general advice too?
Yeah, I think if I were to give advice to other business leaders, the thing I see missed most often is listening, proactive listening, getting people's input. We tend as managers to learn or think our role is to solve problems for people, right? To come in with the answers. I'm more experienced, I'm more seasoned, therefore I have the answer. Here's what we need to do. More often than not, if you ask people, how would you approach this? How would you solve this problem? You'll get, as we started earlier in the podcast, a lot of good answers, right? More people around the table with different ideas, you'll actually find a better answer more often than not than you might have had on your own. And that also gives people the opportunity to help own some of that problem. And there's another behavioral science effect called the IKEA effect, which is we place or impute a lot more value on things that we help create. So if you're creating a program or rolling something out and giving people the chance to weigh in on that, we will naturally have a stronger sense of ownership of that idea, meaning less resistance to the change that idea might bring about. And I think more often than not, we miss those opportunities. It's just really not say I have an open door policy, people can come talk to me, but I go out and ask people for their input. And then I listen to them, I hear them. And then, for my own selfish purposes, I guess, I think recognition is probably the more critical piece and most important piece of any manager's toolkit. And I don't know anyone who's ever said, "Yeah, my supervisor appreciates me too much." Right? That's not a statement ever uttered. Yet, as we think about being listened to, being recognized, a sense of feeling valued, that's the number one driver why people begin to look for different opportunities or leave a workplace. Is I don't feel valued and appreciated in my workplace. And that is something completely within every people leader's control. Is I can listen to people and I can show them my appreciation or gratitude. Right, easy to do, hugely impactful.
Awesome! Wow, great sage advice. I appreciate all of that, Chris, and definitely thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast. Really, this has been a lot of fun to chat. Anything that besides Whistle Rewards you want to give a shout out to or call a plug for?
No, I think just if I were to thank anyone, it's just the incredible team that I get to work with. Just to recognize them, the reason I get to do these things, the reason we're having success, the reason we're able to have impact, and do the things we do is we have a great team of people, who are building incredible technology, who are helping support clients in incredible ways, and frankly, help me laugh more and stay a little more motivated, day in, day out in the workplace. So, shout out to the team.
Yeah. Awesome. That is great. We have a shout outs channel in our company, and now that we have Whistle, looking forward to utilizing it more. And so it was cool to be able to talk with you about all these things. And I appreciate not only the background in which you're kind of looking at some of these issues and trying to improve culture and behavior, but the platform in general. It seems like it's doing great things. So I appreciate you being on and chatting through all this stuff.
My pleasure, Brent. It was great being here. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Well, this has been another episode of Mix and Matchbox. I'm your host, Brent Feldman. We will be back soon with more content. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.